Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
This is my top 5 movies about new beginnings. It is New Year's Day, everybody, and welcome to Top 5, the show where I rank the best of the best in a variety of categories. On this episode, I'm counting down the top 5 movies about new beginnings and fresh starts. New Year's Day is the perfect time of the... New Year's Day is the perfect time to reflect, right? Time to reflect on the past and look forward to the future. And these films capture the struggles and triumphs of starting anew. Whether it's the challenges of getting a fresh start or the struggle to succeed at new beginnings, these movies showcase the difficulties and rewards of making big life changes. So join me as I count down the top 5 films about new beginnings and fresh starts. Let's get into it, shall we? It was a fun week of movie watching. First, trying to track down all of the different movies that fit in this category, and getting to watch a lot of movies. As I said, it is New Year's Day, and New Year's is the best time, the most common time for people to try and make that change, which is always difficult. And these movies highlight the difficulties of making the change, highlight the difficulties of what it is like to start a new life. And just how it takes, strength to overcome the fears and the hurdles that exist when trying to overcome and start a new life and follow your dreams or do something new. It's a tough thing to change your life. You get used to living a certain way, and to kind of introduce a completely new set of things in your life is difficult to do. And I think all of these movies tackle that idea of new beginnings in a different way. And that's what rounded out. These are my favorite movies that I watched. I watched a lot. And I'd love to hear any recommendations you may have of movies that you think are great movies about new beginnings. But I enjoy this list that I came up with, and I'm excited to share it with you. So let's get it started, shall we, with the first movie that is on this list. Number 5, my 5th favorite movie about new beginnings. This is a movie based on a true story. It is a movie that came out while I was working at a movie theater, right? So it was one of the many movies that I saw. Great movie then, great movie now. This has an actress as the lead who has been in multiple movies about new beginnings, but this is the one out of those that I chose to add to this list because it is, one, a good movie. These have to be good movies. I have to enjoy watching them. Some of these new beginning movies can be tough to watch. There is a lot of struggle that happens throughout somebody's attempt to live a new life. And this one made the list at number 5, Erin Brockovich from the year 2000, directed by Steven Soderbergh, starring Julia Roberts, based on a true story. This is a movie where Julia is a single mom, has 3 kids, a baby, and 2 younger age kids. She's trying to find work. She is unemployed. And in her efforts to try and get work, she gets hit by a car, T-boned. And in her lawsuit to try and get compensation for that, has an outburst in court and does not get the money and blames it on her lawyer. Then forcibly kind of does a George Costanza kind of a move and just shows up and tells people that she works there, and eventually gets hired, and eventually finds that she has a passion for this. She has a passion for bringing justice to a situation, for helping people, and she able to use her talents and her strengths in order to help people. And the story itself is great. It's about this basically PG&E, an electric company that was trying to pay people off. because they knowingly were polluting the water and causing all of these health issues that these people, and they try to make an excuse for giving them this money by offering them money to buy their house and trying to pay them off. But it ends up being a big case and a great victory for people who've been just had their lives destroyed with cancer and all kinds of other illnesses by an electric company that's a major corporation that doesn't care about people. And so it's a heartwarming tale. It's her kind of finding success and like doing good for people while also providing a better life for her kids. A great movie, right? A great movie about the new beginnings, her on her own, having to support these kids on her own, and really having the drive and having the passion to not only get this job, but also do the research, do the legwork, figure things out. I mean, obviously, this is only based on a true story, so who knows how accurately this movie is to the real life. But a great movie, and a movie where you feel like the good guys win. In a time where there are so many stories about, especially water, so many stories about how many places in this country are just have no drinking water because companies just pollute the water and get away with it and are never held accountable. Major corporations over and over again just destroying the environment, causing people to live in substandard conditions. Just like we're living in the year 2023, and there are many places in the United States where you can't, the water that you are given is poisonous. Too many places in this country, you have poisonous water being piped into your home. That shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening at the same time there are billionaires taking pleasure cruises to the moon. Not that anybody's gone to the moon yet, but like the range of difference in livelihoods in this country, where we have multiple billionaires, but then also vast majorities of the population who are living in poverty, living with substandard utilities, power that is not doesn't stay on all the time. You have water that's poisonous. It's just disgusting. But anyway, I love this movie. It's really good. The other movie that did make the list, spoilers, from Julie Roberts, was Eat, Pray, Love, which is a great movie. Kind of more of a privileged take on trying to find yourself, where she is somebody who travels around to different places trying to find who she is. She has an unhappy relationship, and it's good, but it's definitely, I don't know, it doesn't really have the struggle. It's more of like privileged, whiny. I mean, it's a good movie, don't get me wrong, but it didn't make the list. Erin Brockovich, way better, I would say. So that's number 5, Erin Brockovich. Moving on to my 4th favorite movie about new beginnings and fresh starts. This is a movie that was on multiple lists that I checked in trying to populate my list of movies to watch. This one made lists constantly. Movie that I had seen when it came out but haven't watched since, and knew kind of what it was like. And in rewatching it, it had, similar to another movie that I had on the list that I took off and replaced with this one, it's really the person trying to trying to find out what they want out of life. Somebody who was living a horrible life, was like a horrible person, but they were doing that because they had a massive tragedy in their family. They had a parent die, and that kind of made them spiral out of control and turn into a horrible person. And the movie is about them not only finding redemption, finding out who they want to be, finding out what they want out of life. And there were 2 movies that were kind of vying for the list, and this is the one I went with. So this movie coming in at number 4 from the year 2014 is Wild, starring Reese Witherspoon, directed by Jean-Marc Vallée. This is kind of an independent movie. She's basically, you're following her, this one woman, on a 1,100-mile hike, solo hike through the, I think, up the Pacific coast, and cuts back, kind of tells her story of how she got there, basically her relationship with her mom, and then how her mom passed away, and then how that kind of made her spiral out of control and ruin her marriage. And this is just kind of her on this hike trying to find out who she is. She's trying to discover what she wants out of her life, also trying to push herself in some ways, like punishing herself by pushing herself through this hike that she is not experienced with, right? Part of this movie is her gaining the experience of actually being on a long distance solo hike, but then also her grappling with this trauma that happened, losing her mom with cancer, taken, at one point said that she was going to live like a year, and then she dies like a month later. So it's like taken away so fast, and her just reflecting on those things as she's on this walk. Great movie, like heartfelt, amazing. And then, to see the evolution of this character as she's on this walk and seeing how horrible she was. I loved it. Leaving the past behind, finding out what she wants out of life. Such a great movie. There's a few movies similar to this in some ways. It's kind of like Out in the Wild, but I would say this one's a little bit better. And then also the movie that I would say compared a lot to and was on the list prior to this movie is King of Staten Island, which is the Pete Davidson movie. And in that movie, he's a degenerate, but he is suicidal, and he is not a good person. And it's because his dad, who's a firefighter, died, which is based on Pete Davidson's true life. And it is him. It's definitely much more of a lighter take, much more of a comedy type of a take. But the characters are kind of going through that similar thing of trying to find out what they want out of life, trying to deal with this trauma that happened in their life and move past that. And I love both of the movies. I probably will watch King of Staten Island more because of the comedy. Bill Burr's great in it as well. But I would say this movie encapsulates that kind of idea that your life has been just going in a downward spiral, and pushing yourself to figure things out and understand what happened to you, trying to leave the past behind, move past that, and understand who you are and start a new life, right? That struggle to adjust and move past trauma. It's great. So that's why it's a number 4. Reese Witherspoon is great in this movie as well. Amazing film. Wild. Highly recommend checking it out. It is here at my number 4, my 4th favorite movie about new beginnings and fresh starts. Let's take a little break from the show to promote the benefits of Inspired Disorder Plus. So you go inspireddisorder.com/plus. Sign up, $5 a month. You get to binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free. You get to watch all of the live painting videos I do. You get a special members-only discount and deals for all of the artwork and merch that I sell. You also get the complete podcast back catalog of every podcast I've ever produced, hundreds of episodes, countless different podcasts. You also get access to my personal blog. A new blog comes out every week. In addition to that, you get my creative writing that I'm releasing. You also get access to Asking Me Anything. 14 years of experience podcasting. I've been creating art my entire life. I've been using Photoshop since middle school, and you can contact me to ask me questions about that or anything else. So those are the benefits for signing up for Inspired Disorder Plus. And now let's get back to the show. Moving on to my 3rd favorite film about fresh starts, new beginnings. This is a movie that I think a lot of people, this is one of those movies that's on all the time, right? This is a movie that's on all the time and is a great movie. And in making this list, I felt it was kind of difficult making sure that these movies really did illustrate new beginnings, fresh starts. And some of these movies take place after the change. Some of these movies are about the change, like Wild, very much about that change. And some movies are getting to a place where you can change, right? Getting out of a situation in order to live a new life. And that is what this movie is about. It is the struggle to get away from a prison that you are in order to free yourself, quite literally. Because coming in at number 3 is The Shawshank Redemption from 1994. This is the movie directed by Frank Darabont, a movie based on a Stephen King book, one of his non-supernatural books, starring Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman. This is a great movie. For those that haven't watched the movie or forgot what it's about, Tim Robbins, who is planning to kill his wife because she knows she's unfaithful, decides not to, but they end up dying, and he ends up getting blamed for the crime, right? Constantly says he's innocent, in prison for life, multiple life sentences, whatever. So he's kind of in some ways trying to make the best out of this prison stay, right? Getting things like library for the prisoners, trying to get better treatment for him and his friends while he's in this horrible situation. But then when he finds out that there's hope for him to prove his innocence, and when that gets shattered, it becomes like this struggle to change something, get control of your life that has been ripped out of your hands, where you have no control over your life. And the long game, the long plan he had to try and escape from this prison and live a life in freedom, which this movie also shows how some people aren't prepared for a new life, how many people from prison have been institutionalized and can't survive living an independent life outside of prison and take their lives, right? So it shows how not only difficult it can be to get a new beginning, to get a fresh start, but even when they are given that new beginning and they're not prepared or want it, how detrimental that can be. Because it's hard. It's hard even when you want it to adjust, to make that adjustment. But to go from being in a prison to finally getting free, it's a great movie, right? And about that kind of long game, sometimes it does take a long time, right? Sometimes you can just start a new life right away. You can just drop everything and start fresh. But sometimes life is out of your control, and it's going to take planning and time and dedication to get to a point where you can finally enjoy that new life. And I think that's what this movie does. And it's a great movie. Great performances by Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. And a great movie. Just a classic film for a reason. A great movie, a great ride. And I think a great movie to be added to this list of movies about new beginnings. Right? Who wouldn't want to gain freedom? Just like if you were to consider the life that is provided in this country, especially if you're not born into privilege, born into money, maybe aren't presented with opportunities like other people are, and to be able to live a life of freedom and leisure and joy, and maybe knowing that at this long hellscape of a time, eventually you can get there. I really do enjoy this movie. Great movie from Frank Darabont. Coming in at number 3, The Shawshank Redemption. Now, moving on to a movie that I just, when I saw it come up on a list, I was kind of surprised, but also makes complete sense, because this movie, despite being, this movie is from a franchise, coming in at number 2. Right, moving on to my second favorite. This movie is part of a franchise, and almost every movie in this franchise is about somebody adjusting to a new life, a new way of living. They're exploring new ways of living. They're being presented with new ways of living. But I would say, despite this movie maybe not being my top favorite movie of the franchise, I would say this one has the most dramatic take on what it takes to have a new beginning. Where this movie is like there's a life change that is happening for this group of friends, whether they like it or not. It's out of their control, and it's understanding what they want out of life, and that having each other with them is what they want. A deep movie, a powerful movie, and that is why this movie, coming in at number 2, is my second favorite movie about new beginnings, and that movie is Toy Story 3. I recently rewatched, reviewed, and ranked the Toy Story movies. Toy Story 2 is my favorite Toy Story movie. I think 3 is my third favorite. They're all great movies, but this one I would say is the best about new beginnings, because this is the movie where Andy is 17. He's going off to college. The toys are kind of in a situation where he's already not really playing with them. They're kind of on their own to create their own worlds and have their own fun together. But they're at a point where they may not be together anymore, because some toys are going to be donated. Some toys he's going to keep and put them in the attic. And in the confusion, they end up getting donated to a daycare, which they think they want, right? It's the grass is always greener. We're going to go to this daycare, and there's going to be a bunch of kids there to play with us and love us. And while they're at this daycare, they get bamboozled and sent to the younger side of the daycare, where they get absolutely abused, right? They were sold wolf tickets, and they're at the wrong place, and they're being abused. And it's all because of this bear who is abandoned by his owner, and he is just jaded and has everything on lockdown. There's a scene that is very similar in some ways to the Shawshank Redemption, where the toys get locked up in prison. They're able to change the settings on Buzz Lightyear, so he becomes a guard, like he doesn't know anything anymore, and he becomes the guard for them. And there's kind of a prison break. They end up at the dump, right? In an effort to escape, they end up at the dump, and even trying to do good, trying to be good toys to make this teddy bear who's jaded, like they do good things. They save his life. They're on a conveyor belt to the incinerator, and they are able to get the teddy bear up so he can go and stop the conveyor belt. But of course, he turns his back on them, and they are pushed into this conveyor belt, pushed into the incinerator. And there's this heartbreaking, just devastating scene where all of these toys that you've been watching through these 3 movies are no longer going to be with Andy. They're no longer going to have a future, because right in front of them, as they're slowly creeping toward this burning incinerator where they're just going to be vaporized, they all kind of grab hands. And there's this moment of peace as they're willing to go into this incinerator and die. But at least they're together. At least they're with their friends. And that whole struggle, this whole movie, is they're struggling to deal with these changes that's going to happen. And the ultimate thing after they even get saved is that they are given new life. They are handed off from Andy to Bonnie, who is the girl who's the daughter of somebody that works at the daycare. And now they have this new life with this new kid who's going to love them and play with them. And she's going to be their new Andy. It is a dark, like almost tragic movie for a Toy Story movie, but in such a great way encapsulates so many aspects of what a new life or the pursuit of a new beginning can be, right? The thought of having an idea of a new life being this paradise, and then showing up and realizing it's not at all what you expected, right? The complete grass is always greener kind of a thing, where you think that in changing to this thing and pursuing this thing is going to lead to a better life, and it completely isn't, right? It's understanding that there's nothing you can do to keep this change from happening, right? There's nothing they can do to keep Andy from getting older, to keep Andy from getting rid of him and moving on his own, right? And so many of the Toy Story movies, they're introduced to these new ways of life. Toy Story 4, it's Woody being introduced to the being a lost toy, being a free toy, and being able to do anything and not having an owner. But I think this one encapsulates that idea of a new beginning. And when they're given to Bonnie, and they have this new kid who loves them and gonna play with them too, it's just like it's such a roller coaster. This movie had to be at number 2. It's so good. The franchise is great, but this is such a good movie, and it gets you. It gets you. So that's why it is here at number 3. Number 2, Toy Story 3 from the year 2010. Lee Ulrich directed, Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, obviously, and just it's definitely a great Toy Story movie. But yeah, the best Toy Story movie, I would say, that is about new beginnings. Almost any of them could be, right? The first one is the fresh start for Buzz Lightyear. The second one is the Andy broken going to the toy collector. Maybe not the second one as much. Maybe the second. The fourth one for sure. You have the spoon, Forky. You have Woody kind of going off on his own to go with Bo Peep. Definitely a new, and his reluctance to do that. But anyway, number 2, Toy Story 3. I want to take a quick break from the show to let you all know that there is official merch for the Ray Taylor Show. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com. You can get t-shirts, different artwork available, different designs, all on high-quality materials in all the sizes. There's also iPhone cases made of biodegradable material. That's right. This is not bad for the environment. This is good for the environment. So all of those designs that are available on t-shirts are also available on phone cases. Designed by me, sold by me. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com to support the Ray Taylor Show and promote it out in the world, so all of the people in your life can see that you are a fan of the Ray Taylor Show. Now, let's get back to that very show right now. Moving on to my favorite movie about new starts, fresh beginnings. This is a movie that I think illustrates perfectly having to overcome. There's a lot of people that have fears about starting a new life, right? Fear is the number one thing that keeps people from doing anything new, right? And I think this movie beautifully illustrates how overcoming those fears can lead to new experiences, completely new experiences, and not willing to stay with what is normal and what has been your life, to push through and try something new. And this movie does that in a very unique way, very creative way, and it's a great movie in general, obviously. But coming in at number 1, my favorite movie about new beginnings is The Truman Show from 1998, directed by Peter Weir, starring Jim Carrey and Ed Harris. This is a movie where Jim Carrey, Truman, is a baby who's existed his entire life in a fake reality on the set of a reality TV show where everything is engineered and scripted and acted around him. He has never experienced an authentic life. He has never experienced authentic relationships. And this movie is his pursuit once he realizes that he isn't living that he is being manipulated in some way and that things aren't right, and his dreams of going to travel and the traumas from his life that have kept him from traveling, that they engineered to scare him off of traveling. Like, he has to overcome all these things. There's the great scene at the end where he's in the boat And even though the storm that killed his father, and he's so scared of the ocean, and he survives through all of that, he comes through all of that, a real battle between him and Ed Harris, who's like the producer, director of this Truman Show, and how he is willing to either succeed or die. Those are his only choices. He is willing to sacrifice his life in order to get to the other side, in order to live that life. Nothing they threw at him would stop him from doing that. And in so many ways, you have to have that mentality depending on the life you want to live, depending on how drastically you want to change your life. Because you definitely have to have that mindset in order to want to change your life. You have to be upset. You have to want for something different, want for something new, right? And in that, you have to use that as fuel to push through the many obstacles that you will face, right? Just a learning curve based on new experiences, overcoming massive amounts of fears, and to have that mentality of victory or death, I think is something that I relate to, maybe not at the exact one-to-one comparison of this, right? But that is kind of my thing, where it's like I will find every way to try and survive in order to make the reality I want possible. And that is what Truman does, sacrificing himself, pushing past his limitations, pushing past what he thinks he can do, and achieving that where he reaches the edge, runs into the wall of the studio and gets up the stairs and says goodbye to everybody. And it's a great movie. Just a great movie, overcoming fears, overcoming trauma in order to change your life, in order to experience and explore life more than he has, and to get more out of life. You know, especially once you peek behind the curtain, you realize, you know, maybe the life you're living isn't all it's cracked up to be, right? Things are changing all the time, and sometimes you realize that maybe there's a life that I would enjoy living more than this one. And once you get a peek behind that curtain, it can start to mount with momentum and pressure to get things changed. But you have to have that mentality to really push through when things get tough, because nothing's easy. And to think that a massive life change isn't going to be difficult is a fool's errand. It is one of the more difficult things you can do to change your life. And I think this movie illustrates that in one of the most unique ways, right? Somebody who has spent his whole life living in a manufactured reality, a studio audience, being beloved by so many people that he doesn't even know, living lives that he doesn't understand, and finally getting a chance to push through and overcome and live that life. So that is why this movie is at number one. It's a great movie, but it's also a movie that I think illustrates the many ideas and themes of achieving a new beginning or a fresh start in a way that is very unique. So coming in at number one is The Truman Show. Now, there's many movies I watched. I list some honorable mentions. Minari was great, about a Korean family coming to, I think it was Alabama, to start a farm. And, of course, them running into constant problems and troubles. It is basically the movie that features the difficulties of starting a new life. Eat, Pray, Love, as I mentioned before. Pursuit of Happiness, which is probably the best acting from Will Smith. But, I would say Aaron Brockovich is very similar, and I'd rather promote Aaron Brockovich than a Will Smith project. I just, I think he's an overrated actor, and after how he's kind of revealed himself to be very selfish and whatnot, I'm kind of turned off from his movies, even though I do love Pursuit of Happiness. I think the best performance he's ever done. The only time I think he should have won for a best actor. Although I haven't seen the most recent one, but again, don't really have much desire, which it sucks for anybody that works with him. But that's what Will Smith did to himself, being selfish on live TV. Sleepless in Seattle is kind of a great one. There's a lot of stories about a loved one dying or divorce. So there's a lot of those kinds of stories. Good Will Hunting is a great one as well. Although that's more of just somebody leaving to start a life in some ways. It's not like he was, I don't know. I love that movie, but I didn't feel like it was enough about the topic. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, obviously another great one. Kind of that newly divorced single mom trying to make a life. So in a lot of ways similar to Erin Brockovich, similar to Sleepless in Seattle in some ways, although Sleepless in Seattle is more of just a love story. But yeah, so I watched a bunch. There's other ones that I watched that I just didn't put on the list, but please recommend whatever movies that inspire you, that are about new beginnings or fresh starts. And let me do this list one more time. This is my top 5 movies about new beginnings and fresh starts. Starting off with number 5 is Erin Brockovich. Number 4 is Wild. Number 3 is The Shawshank Redemption. Number 2 is Toy Story 3. And my number 1 favorite movie about new beginnings and fresh starts is The Truman Show. Please let me know how you would rank these films or what movies you would rank as your top 5 movies about fresh starts and new beginnings. Hit me up in the comments or on social media. I'd love to hear it. And I hope everybody has a beautiful and wonderful start to the year 2023. I hope you take this opportunity to start fresh and start working towards living a life that you want to live, despite whatever obstacles are in your way. And thank you for watching. Till next week.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.